Hello, welcome back to Learn Economy. In this video, we are dealing with the second topic which is specified or mentioned in the syllabus of UGC NET JRF examination 2021. That is determination of output and employment under classical approach. So before starting, let me give you an intro of myself. I am working as a head in charge of Department of Economics in one of the reputed government aided colleges which come under the University of Kerala. I am a PhD holder and also I have secured first rank in both BA and MA Economics. Also I have qualified for UGC NET examination thrice and JRF examination twice in economics. So let's move on to the topic employment and output determination under classical approach. Before starting the video, let me tell you that I have done a video regarding the assumptions of the classical model. So I would request you to go through that particular video first and then come back to this video, because that is very much important. The assumptions are set in a theory, especially to lay the background for the theory. So the person who has propounded this theory, not only this theory, whichever theory it is, the person who has put forward a particular theory would be setting a background for the theory first, and he would be assuming that such and such conditions would prevail, and it is based on those conditions he would set the theory. So it is better for you to understand the assumptions first and then come back to the theory. So I request you to go through the assumptions first and then come back to this theory. And also one more thing to tell you, right? This concept, that is the classical theory of output, employment and income, this topic has been criticized widely, and even Keynes is criticized, and this kind of the economy which assumed this or the economy which believed working of classical theory was found to be what? Caught in the trap of Great Depression of 1930s and all. As a result, Keynes has criticized classical theory of output determination or employment determination or income determination, and he had come forward with his own way of output determination or employment determination or income determination. But now in recent days, you could see that in many of the examinations, especially UPSC examinations, NET examinations and all, questions are coming from the arena of output employment determination under classical approach. So this is one of the key areas that you can refer to, and understanding the assumptions of this model is also very much important. So that's why I'm requesting you to please go through those assumptions, because in those assumptions I have given a very detailed explanations of those assumptions. I'll be giving you the link of that particular video right in the description box here, which should be below the video. So I request you to go through the assumptions first and then come back to the theory. That is very much better for you. So with that, let's move on to the topic, the employment output determination under classical approach. So for understanding this topic very clearly, just consider a labor market. Okay, so you know that labor market is a place, or it is a setup where you could see supply of labor and demand for labor, and there would be the interaction of labor supply and labor demand to determine the equilibrium level of employment, wages, etc. Right? So that's a setup. So consider a labor market where we deal with the production function and all. So here the labor market is related with the production market, or related with the output market. Okay, so that's why we are simultaneously looking into the labor market as well as in the commodity market. Okay, so just consider a labor market, and we are assuming that the production production of output is something that is a function of capital as well as labor, and here capital is considered to be the constant capital stock. That is, it is not variable, it is considered to be fixed. At least in the short run it is considered to be fixed, whereas we have a variable factor, that is labor. And in the classical model we assume that equilibrium level of output, this is determined by the employment of labor. So if you determine the equilibrium level of labor or equilibrium level of employment, that would simultaneously determine the equilibrium level of what? Output in the economy. Okay, so that the equilibrium level of output and the equilibrium level of employment, these two things are simultaneously determined in the market. So the demand for labor and supply of labor would determine both of these things. So now you can assume about a profit maximizing economy. Just assume the case of a profit maximizing economy. So in this profit maximizing economy, labor would be demanded only up to a point where the revenue earned by selling the total product produced by the marginal unit of labor equals the marginal cost of labor. So labor would be employed up to a point where MR equal MC, right? And MC of labor, we know that it is equal to the money wage rate, and the marginal product of labor is the MPL. That is, MC of labor is the money wage given to the labor divided by the marginal product of labor. I hope you are clear with the MR, MC and MP approaches. If you are not, please give a comment or please give a request regarding the same or mentioning regarding the same in the comment box. I'll be giving you another video regarding all these topics to make you clear, okay, so that would give you clarity. Now here MC or the marginal cost is equal to W by MPL, that is money wage by marginal product of labor. Now here the condition for profit maximization is P is equal to MC by W by MPL, that is from this equation 3.4 you will be getting another equation P into MPL is equal to W. From that equation we can get another equation, that is W by P is equal to MPL. Remember here W is the money wage rate and W by P is the real wage rate, okay. And we know that the MP curve of labor, this would indicate the demand curve for labor, because the firm will employ labor only up to a point where MP of labor equals the money wage rate that is paid to the labor, and more labor would be demanded at a lower wage, and thus the demand curve for labor would depend inversely on real wage rate, and the aggregate demand curve for labor, it's a horizontal summation of all the individual firms' demand curve for labor. As in the case of the market demand, you can see that it is a horizontal summation. Okay, market demand for commodity. In the case of market demand for commodity, we know it is a summation of all the it is a horizontal summation of all the individual demand curve for the commodity. As in by applying the same concept here in the case of labor market, you could see that the demand curve for labor is a horizontal summation of all the that is the total or the aggregate demand curve for labor is a horizontal summation of all the individual demand curves for labor economy. Now, the aggregate demand curve for labor is actually inversely related to the real wage rate, that is DL is equal to function of W by P, and also like in the case of aggregate demand curve for labor, in the case of aggregate supply curve of labor, this too is a function of W by P, that is the real wage rate. Okay, now coming by taking all these relationships together with the equilibrium condition for labor market, that is DL is equal to SL, that is demand for labor equals the supply of labor, this will determine the output, employment and real wage rate in the classical economy or classical system. And the equilibrium level of real wage rate and the equilibrium level of employment rate would be determined at a point where the negative sloping demand curve for labor cuts the positive sloping supply curve of labor. Okay, once we know the equilibrium level of output on employment or whatever it is, if you are determining here, we are looking at the intersection of demand curve for labor and supply curve of labor, and the intersecting point between these two curves will determine what the level of employment in the labor market, and also from this, if you know this, you will be able to derive the aggregate production function that will help you to derive the equilibrium level of output in the economy. So from this figure you can see that in the upper panel you can see that the negatively sloping demand curve for labor is cutting the positively sloping upper the supply curve of labor, and equilibrium is determined at point E, where you could determine the equilibrium level of employment, that is LE, and the equilibrium level of real wage rate, that is W by P. F, and equilibrium level of employment is the full employment in the economy, that is whomever is willing to work at the prevailing wage rate is able to get work, and the corresponding equilibrium level of output here is Y by F, that is the equilibrium output level is also known as the full employment output. Okay. So because this output is created or this is produced by the full employed labor force, and in the classical system the full employment is achieved automatically due to the wage price flexibility, and this is another assumption of the classical model. Okay, so I have given a detailed description of wage price flexibility in the video I have specified in the beginning of this video, so please go and refer to that for details. For instance, at a real wage rate, that WP1, there exists a situation of unemployment, because we can know that to the extent of AB, supply of labor is more than the demand for labor, so there is unemployment of labor, right? So what happens is that now this excess supply of labor, AB will reduce the real wage rate until the labor supply is equal to the labor demand in the economy, and ultimately what will happen is that the real wage rate will decline to WPF, W by PF, that is the full employment wage rate, the wage rate that will help to employ the full employed labor force, or that will ensure full employment in the economy, where the aggregate labor demand is equal to the aggregate supply. So exactly, you could see that aggregate demand is exactly equal to the aggregate supply at this point, right? Now it may be it could be said that the volume of output and employment in the classical system is both these are determined by only supply side of the market for output, and these people, classical economists, are not concerned about the demand side. They are basically focused upon the supply side of the market. And since classical model is supply determined one, it says that the equiproportionate increase in or decrease in the both in the case of money wage and the price level will not change the labor supply in the economy. Now coming to the price level determination in the money market, in the case of classical approach, we could see that money market. So here, in order to understand all these things, what classical economists has done is that they have introduced the money market, and they answered the question of general price level determination in terms of the quantity theory of money, which determines aggregate demand, which in turn would determine the price level in the economy. In the classical model, it is assumed that the people will hold money, especially to facilitate transactions. So these people, classical economists, they have given importance to the medium of exchange function of money. They are not considering money as a store of value, or the other functions of money are not taken into consideration here. They are just concerned about the medium of exchange function of money. So the transaction would depend upon the volume of money income here. So it could be said that total demand for money in an economy is a function of money national income or output. Okay. Supply of money and the demand for money would jointly establish equilibrium in the money market, and as in the case of commodity market, demand and supply would interact, and this will intersect at a particular point, and you will be at this from this point, or at this point you will be able to determine the equilibrium position. Now the demand for money equation that will be presented here is the Marshalling cash balance version of quantity theory of money. So that is MD is equal to KPY, where MD is the demand for money, Y is the output in the economy, P is the price level, K is a fraction of Y that people want to hold to facilitate transaction. Now equation 3.10 actually states that the people will hold cash balance since there is a gap between money receipts and money expenditure. The supply of money is fixed and believed that it is supplied by the central bank. In the case of India, we know that central bank is the Reserve Bank of India. Now here MS is equal to M, that is money supply is equal to the M, that is the money. Now for equilibrium in the money market, KPY, that is given in the equation 3.12, that is the demand for money should be equal to the supply of money, right? Now this is equation 3.12 shows a proportional relationship between money stock and the price level, and the quantity of money, it says that the quantity of money determines the price level. Now this is to be remembered that Y is something that is fixed, especially due to the existence of full employment situation in the economy. Now here in this figure you can see that the money market equilibrium, where we could plot the total money stock M on the horizontal axis and PY on the vertical axis, and here the vector OL, the slope of which is 1 by K, it shows the levels of PY that can be supported by different quantities of money supply. Now as money supply increases from M1 to M2, what happens is that the price level 2 would rise from P1 to P2, that is there is a proportionate, direct and proportionate relationship between money supply and price level. This is another assumption of the classical model. Okay, now we could understand the link between the money supply and price level, that is an excess money supply means an increase in demand for commodities, which would put the aggregate price level, which would pull up, that is when money supply increases, price level would also increase. When money supply decreases, price level too would come down. But money supply does not have any impact on Y, which is determined by the real sector, right? The output is determined at the real sector, right? And why is fixed? Especially due to full employment. We are employing the fully employed labor force and we are producing the full employment output. So thus we cannot make any changes in the output in the economy, at least in the case of short run. Now, the only way for equilibrium output to change in the classical model can be attributed to shift in the demand curve for labor or the labor supply curve. We know that if there is any changes in the demand curve for labor or supply curve of labor, that will definitely affect the equilibrium level of output, right? Now, one essential feature is that money is neutral. It is another important assumptions of classical model, and this means that changes in the money stock affect absolute prices and money wages proportionately, and real variables such as output level of employment, real wage rate, etc. will remain undisturbed if there is any change in the money supply. Now coming to another concept, interest rate determination in the case of goods market. Here in the classical model, the components of aggregate demand, consumption, investment determine the equilibrium interest rate in the economy. Okay, the interest rate, it is something that guarantees changes in the particular components of demand. Particular components of demand do not affect the aggregate level of commodity demand, and it may be noted that the interest rate is real variable. It is especially in the goods market, and the good market is concerned with the way in which a fixed output or income is split between saving and consumption. Here we determine the equilibrium rate of interest. Saving implies a choice between present and future consumption. If you are utilizing all your money income on consumption, that means that you are not setting anything for future consumption, and so saving has to be divided between present consumption and future consumption. Future consumption means saving, right? Now people save in the current period to have larger income or consumption at a future date. Of course, we know that such saving would depend upon the rate of interest in the classical system and not on income, as in the case of Keynes. So Keynes says that money saving would depend, it's a function of income, but in the case of classical economists or classical school of thought, saving is a function of interest rate. You would save depending upon your savings. How much you are saving would depend upon what? The interest rates prevailing in the economy. Now the classical assume that the saving is an increasing function of interest rate. That means that if there is an increasing interest rate, you will increase your savings. And investment may be defined as the amount of an economy's product that is not consumed. Investment is the creation of additional stock of capital, and this is something that is used to create the value in future. An economy would consider a number of capital projects in each time period. That is what something we know. And this would undertake investment projects that will lead a great rate of return greater than the money market rate of interest. Thus, investment in the classical system depends upon the market rate of interest. Remember, whether it is saving or investment, it depends upon the market rate of interest in the case of classical model. Now, as a function of R, the goods market equilibrium is achieved by saving equals investment. Since both saving and investment are functions of interest rate, we can equate both these, and the flexible rate of interest in the classical system always brings equality between savings and investment. In this figure you can see that the equilibrium rate of interest is determined in the classical model, and this is independent of the money sector or monetary sector. Saving is shown by the S curve, and investment is shown by the I curve, and this both are equal at a point E. Both will come to equality at this equilibrium point, and here we could determine the equilibrium volume of saving, that is SC, and equilibrium volume of investment, that is IE. Rate of interest comes to an equilibrium point, and this point is RE. Okay. So the equilibrium interest rate is a real variable and in no way influenced by the quantity of money. And the basic policy implications of classical model is that monetary policy alone can influence economic activity, and they are not concerned about government. They say that there should not be government intervention. This is another assumption of classical model. So with this we end today's video. Thank you for watching. Please like, share and subscribe this channel for more videos. I am welcoming you to my Telegram group and Telegram channel as well. So if you have any kind of doubts and all, you can post it there. I'll be explaining the same, and also you can make very encouraging discussions there. You will be learning, you will be getting a lot out of that. So I am welcoming you to take part in that. With that, I end here. Thank you for watching.